We've been called a golden family by people outside of us. I don't know how you get this lucky to pull together people that there is so much profound harmony and respect.
This is in fact our family vacation for the year. Here we are in Fergus, Canada, getting tattoos from Damon as part of our family spiritual retreat, so to speak.
Raven said, okay, you can go here, and there's this distraction, this is activity, and this entertainment, and you could go watch movies, or you could read books or whatever, but we knew we wanted to be together. The girls lived 100 miles away. We just wanted to be in the same room. And then we realized there was this beautiful blending of energy. Sometimes we could be quiet together, but usually there was talking, getting caught up again, sharing ideas. I love the way everyone gathers around the person who's getting the tattoo and offers support.
To me, this is a blessing, just to be able to hang out here with them and to have this experience one day after the other.
The family came to me originally from Texas. Paul and Kathleen, mom and dad, and then daughters, Lauren and Danielle. And then husband of Danielle is Anthony.
I was of the age, born in 1955, when tattoos were, no offense to anybody, but more vulgar, more a thing of the uneducated, street thug types, people that were more base and lower class.
I would hang out with my girls. He's a working man, he's going out, he's taking care of business, and I'm sitting around watching Miami Ink and things with him. And I could see this joy that would bring them, and they would sit around like, oh, I want to do this and that and everything. So I was kind of caught up in their dreams.
I think you and I had known for years that we wanted tattoos. Mm-hmm. And it had sort of been a matter of finding the right artist and having the right time and the right situation. And Mom had always been sort of quietly supportive. I mean, you do what you want to do with your body. Mm-hmm. And Dad had kind of just been silent and Dad-like on the entire thing, which is to say he's a very supportive father, but got the sense that he maybe didn't want us getting tattooed, but wasn't going to say anything.
I went to an art seminar with my mom. I remember being a little bit overwhelmed by all the people that were there. There were so many great artists, and I'd had this idea in my head for a while that I wanted to get a tattoo. But I wasn't really impressed with any of the artists that I had seen so far, and I remember seeing Damon's art, and it was this bird in flight. And I had this moment where I was like, this is exactly what I want. And I had that moment before I even knew that Damon was a tattoo artist. I knew that I wanted Dad specifically to come with me because the tattoo that I had in mind was a raven, and that happens to be the spirit animal for both of us.
When she met Damon and she said, that's what I want, you know, it kind of came up in a conversation with Dad, and Dad's like, no, you're pure, you're beautiful as you are, you don't need to do anything, and you don't want to regret it later. And later that night, pillow talk, he says, well, you know, am I right or am I right? And I said, no, I don't think you're right. I think that was a little of a shock to him. So nothing was said for some months, and we were at a luncheon with a mutual friend, and the topic came up, Lauren sitting beside me, and I could feel her tensing up every particle, and I was like, oh God, here we go again. And Paul says, unexpectedly, he says, you know, I used to think that we didn't want them to do, I didn't want them to do that. I wanted them to respect their bodies and their purity, blah, blah, blah. But I changed my mind. He said, it's their bodies and I respect them to make their right to make the decision that they want for themselves, that they're not going to be foolish or frivolous about it. I turned to look at Lauren, who had been holding her breath the whole time, and I just saw a single tear coming down her cheek. And I knew in that moment that something really important had happened, that there had been this shift, and I fell in love with my husband all over again. It was like, this is the man I married, because he got it.
It's all true. as their father, as the catcher of my beautiful babies, the one who cut both their cords, they were beautiful and pure and untouched, and I gave them this father lecture about how your body is probably a sacred temple, something like that. Mm-hmm. And yet I could see how important it was. And it occurred to me that it was so important to her that I was putting her in a position of choosing between being true to herself or respecting my wishes.
He made it possible for her to do both, and I was proud of both of them.
It was a holiday party that we were having. My dad had had a few drinks, I'm pretty sure. I said, Dad, I found this artist, this is what I want. Again, I want to get my raven. and I would love it if you would come with me because you have the raven also. And I threw it out as just kind of an afterthought, you know, maybe you could even get a tattoo with me. And he just looked at me and he said, okay. I was like, to which part? You're gonna come with me? Are you gonna get a tattoo? He just looked at me, okay. I was like, okay, I don't know what that means. So the next day I brought it up to him again, kind of expecting him to have changed his mind, and he was just completely on board with the whole thing. He was gonna get that tattoo with me, we were gonna go in together, and drag Danny and Mom along with us.
So when the whole tattoo trip came up, and the four of us came out together, and it wasn't the right time for me to get a tattoo, and it wasn't really the right time for you to get a tattoo, but the fact that Dad came out and got one with Lauren seemed pretty like a big deal in the family.
And to be fair, Lauren, when we were here, you turned to your father and you said, you do not have to get the tattoo. And that was just a beautiful mirror of the way you both were responsive and sensitive to each other. And you said, no, I have to, because I don't want her to ever question you know, my support for this, or her to feel like she's being judged or something's being held back.
It's also way too late after you meet Damon and see how cool the tattoos are.
I know.
Our next trip here, the four of us each got a tattoo, and now Anthony has joined us on our third trip. But on our second trip, I was really delighted to find that they had committed our tattoos to a business card. So this was Lauren and I after our first visit here.
Well, I actually wasn't going to get any tattoos. I was just, you know, it's beautiful, it's cool, never thought it was my thing. And there was this really beautiful moment when Lauren was the first one in the chair on that first visit, and because it was on her back, she was looking through the headrest, and Danielle and I were sitting on the floor together, looking into her face, and she had this look of incredible bliss. She looked like a Madonna. I mean, there was just this incredible spiritual serenity and beauty. And in my mind's eye, when Damon leaned over to start working on her, I just suddenly imagined this shaft of light and how their two energies had blended. And then he was really channeling something very specific, that there was some level of cooperation on a spiritual level, a co-creation. Today's tattoo was about the new beginning we're going to have. We just purchased a home half an hour from our children in Seattle. We're going to be making a major lifetime move after being in one home for 21 years. And many years ago, when I left home the first time, I purchased an anklet which was sort of symbolic of the freedom that I felt that time in my life. So I asked Damon if we could incorporate that as a tattoo, and I really appreciated that he respected my view. Also, I threw him a curve at the end. You know, we talked earlier about doing the anklet just as it was, and then in my dreams last night I saw some birds and had a new idea, but he's great about accommodating.
The tattoo I'm going to get this time is a snake. It's going to go on this arm as well. I have my raven up here and I have a coyote right down here. The snake is going to come next. I love the idea of the snake because it's all about transmutation and being able to change things that are negative or poisonous into something either harmless or positive, and being able to move that along. I also really like the idea of what my sleeve will be as a whole. The raven is representative of the overworld, coyote is representative of earth, and I'm going to get the snake as a representation of the underworld also.
I am an avid underwater photographer, and I've spent many hours underwater with the creatures of the sea, and I realized that I had a totem animal for underwater. Mine was the hammerhead shark, or rather the great scalloped hammerhead. This was a result of a diving trip I made to Galapagos in 2007, in which I saw dozens, even hundreds of hammerheads swimming overhead. A hammerhead to me was special. I mean, it was such a magical experience in that I felt that I was bonding with them. I actually felt like I thought they were chanting. I could hear chanting underwater, like monks chanting. But what made them mesmerizing to me is that when a shark swims, the hammerhead particularly, it's got this oscillating movement. And when hundreds of them are doing that overhead, it became just a fantastic experience, a visual treat in which the audio seemed somehow to kick in. So when I made my second visit to Damon, I wanted a totem for below, and I had one installed on my right thigh. And now I'm going to get a second hammerhead because while I've got one representing my totem for underwater, the realization is that hammerheads are schooling creatures, and that this one is lonely.
I got a rose tattoo because I've kind of been in love with the flower for a very, very long time. I've always loved flowers. The more I looked into rose symbolism, the more it resonated with me, or the stories about the symbols resonated with some of my personal values and a lot of my personal experiences. I liked the lineage. I think that's probably the best way to say it. I felt like there was a lot of depth. She's a symbol particularly belonging to the Madonna, Virgin Mary, and then before her, she belonged to Aphrodite, and before Aphrodite, it was Inanna, and before Inanna, it was Ishtar. So there's this incredible lineage of femininity and sort of this abstract archetype of the feminine concept in culture specifically that was attached to the rose. As I was looking at all of this and sort of processing it, it suddenly seemed really important to me to, I suppose, own it in my own life and to not let it continue to be this sort of shallow cliche for, oh, love.
So the inspiration behind this tattoo was a time of life that was big on change. I was planning a large move, and we were selling our first house, my wife and I. I came home from work and noticed a large insect flying around the room, and I realized that it was a praying mantis. And so I captured him with a cup, just putting it over the top of him, and carried him outside carefully and put him back in the garden where I expected him to belong. Came back inside and didn't really think anything else of it other than, cool, I had a mantis in my house. And then the next night I came home and I saw him again. And the second time I caught a hold of the mantis, or saw the mantis, again, we didn't know how it got inside. We both saw him this time, my wife and I. And then the third night in a row, I came home from work and my wife was like, your mantis is here. I go to get it, not even bothering with a piece of paper or a cup or anything. I just walked up to him and you know, caught him in my hands. At this point, I felt like he was getting along with us. And I go to take him outside and my wife calls behind me. She's like, you know, he's probably a messenger. You should see what he has to say. So kind of, okay, sure. So I take him outside and I sit down on my back porch, and rather than flying away or even having to shoo him off, he just sat there on my hand while I sat there and looked at him, and began to clean its antennae. And my wife goes, what did the mantis have to say? And I was like, it told me to clean my antennae. A couple of months down the line, and we were at a New Year's party. And at the New Year's party, rather than counting down from 10 to that New Year's moment, we started saying I love you, like as a group, as a large crowd. And it got really, really silly, and everybody was laughing at the end of it. And we ended the year and began the year by saying I love you. After that ritual sort of experience where so many people were lending their energy for a purpose, I realized that's what cleaning your antennae meant to me. That's what it was. It was clearing out any extra sensory, any sensory perceptions, like through the process of ritual, through the process of a large group of people, like raising their voices to one purpose. You know, I'm gonna tell this shamanistic, really cool, spiritual, visionary artist this story and see what he has to think of it. And Damon's first reply was, I've never done a mantis.
My clients inspire me many different ways, but these guys inspired me because the way that they took basically a modern ritual, you know, the tattoo process, and they used it in their own way. Those guys brought up their kids really well. Holy moly. Like, talk about support, like, I mean, doing art all their life, and like they're just encouraged to do healthy, creative things right from day one.
He prays through his tattoos. It's a form of worshiping the art or worshiping the muses or just communing with the muses. And he brings that sort of energy to his work.
Damon is so good about making you feel, I mean, because he really genuinely respects people as human beings. He respects why they're coming to you. He doesn't look at you with this sort of prejudgment of, oh, I'm so bored with that symbol or whatever, I don't want to do it. He's really willing to listen to you and why you're doing it and help you find those deeper reasons why it's so important.
What really drew me to him is that we were able to pick out an outline together. So we were looking at pictures online, we picked out an outline that we really wanted. From there, he just kind of made up the pattern as he was going along. And I feel like there's a lot of channeling of my energy and his energy that went into it.
His respect for other people's ideas. As an artist, I understand how you have a vision, and there's a certain level of compromise to embrace and accept, integrate someone else's vision in it. And I really appreciated his willingness to work with me.
With Damon, it is a special experience. Let me say, less like the process of simply getting ink applied, but it's more of a process of transformation.